There's a lot of buzz around headless. What is a headless CMS?
Well, it's a new kind of CMS, so to speak, which sees the way you architect content management solutions in a different way. Traditionally, CMS systems have been built in a way where the CMS is in charge of letting users create content, create articles, create images, galleries, whatever, manage the workflow up to the time where it's published, but also to publish and deliver them on web pages. So the CMS was basically in charge of the whole thing, from creating the content to delivering web pages to the visitors. The headless CMS is a different approach where the CMS just focuses on one thing. It's about the creation process, the authoring. So it lets users create and validate content and store the content in a repository, but doesn't take care of the delivery at all. So there's no web pages coming out of a headless CMS. There's no websites. There's no apps. There's just raw content, which is available through APIs, usually through JSON, but it could be XML, it could be anything. So that's the concept, basically. It's a CMS which is without the delivery, so I don't know why the guy who coined this term mentioned the delivery as the head, but it has to be the head of the CMS, and there's no head.
So does Easy CMS support headless?
So how does this relate to Easy, and is it something that we support or that we thought about? Easy is not a headless CMS per se, because Easy can take care of the delivery of the content on web pages. There's a big part of Easy which is about that, delivering web pages. It's not the whole thing, it's one part of our CMS. On the other hand, Easy allows to do similar thing as what a headless CMS does, because Easy is architected in a way where parts of the systems are decoupled, and the content repository speaks with the user interface through REST APIs and through APIs, and in a similar way, the content repository speaks to a delivery system through APIs. So you can decide to use the web delivery which comes with the platform. You can also decide to use another web delivery or another delivery to other destinations which are non-web. And this has always been in the idea of Easy, at least since Easy Published 3, which was created in 2003, I think. This idea that content needs to be able to live somewhere else that you don't know about, so that you must be able to deliver the content without the presentation, without the design that goes with it, but just the structured content raw. So yeah, it's been with us all the time. We never called this headless, and we don't call it headless now, but the capability, yes.
What are your thoughts on the headless trend, and where do you think the industry is headed to in the near future?
Well, the first thing is you definitely have to filter what's buzz and what's trend from what's really useful in headless, or what's good in headless, or meaningful, I think. Because like every trend, it's always the same thing, big buzzword, and people all want this, but they don't really know what's behind. So I think what will happen is that people will try to more understand what it is. Now we are really at the beginning of the hype, and people will definitely try to make more like less affective decisions, or like decisions which are more motivated by what they really need. So one trend I see is that headless remove the web delivery, and there's actually a lot of risk or a lot of consequences to that, because it means you have to take care of this yourself. There's a reason why the traditional CMS have been built this way, with the ability to deliver web pages. It's to simplify the way people build websites, and just removing this part and saying we will do this the way we want ourselves with JavaScript libraries or framework or other systems is just going directly to redoing something that was already done. So people will start to rebuild delivery systems. So maybe there will be a trend, like a circle, going back to the traditional CMS at some point. This said, there are a number of use cases where web delivery is not needed at all. And this is the real the meaningful answer that headless brings. There's one use case where headless is absolutely a good way to go. It's when you deliver content to something which is not a website, to, let's say, digital signage that I was mentioning. You don't know the device, you just know that you have maybe specifications for an API, how to integrate with this device, that's all. And there, headless makes a lot of sense. And those systems are exponentially growing. There's more and more, and that's where headless makes a lot of sense. Another interesting trend that we see actually is that headless vendors, which we are not that easy because we have a full solution which is decoupled, so can be used headless, but we are not a headless vendor. Headless vendors start to bring delivery to their product. I think at first they didn't want to hear about web templates. They didn't want to hear about the fact that they could at some point have to deliver the content on the web. And I already see that they are now starting to expand their product with capabilities about web delivery. So it's quite interesting because they are basically going back to maybe the original idea of the CMS. Now we will see that first generation CMSs, the CMS which are not able to provide APIs, which are not really truly able to provide access to the content in a raw form, whether it's JSON or something else, those CMS will very quickly lose their users, lose their market share, lose their footprint on the market. So this is something which will accelerate, and those CMS are still actually running a large share of the market, of the web CMS market. So there's a replacement market coming on, a replacement move, and this will go fast now because companies are now understanding that they need to think beyond the web, they need to reuse their content across different destinations on the web and beyond, and that's something that is already here. So it's now a matter of years, I think, for those first generation CMS to be absolutely obsolete.
What are the biggest benefits and challenges of switching to headless?
Well, of course, it depends your use case, your needs, your project. But one of the benefits is that, of course, it's a smaller scope, so it's a lesser of a big machine and something much more focused. So it's usually good to take a best of breed approach, I think. So that's what it is. You have if you really just need this content creation solution, then headless is somehow good for that. So you don't have to carry the other features, basically. That's one benefit. The other is that maybe headless, because it's more focusing on the content creation, is maybe more capable of providing value to the editorial workflow and to the editorial team. So probably you find people who are more expert in that domain when you go and pick a headless CMS. This said that easy. So again, we are not headless, but we've been working with publishers for 15 years, and I think we have very similar capabilities. So I don't know if it's really a benefit. No, I think the first one is really the one that matters. It's more compact, it's more lean. The challenges are, in most of the cases, the challenges are that you will have to take care of the delivery of the content yourself. So as I mentioned, there are maybe some use cases where the delivery is anyway something you don't control, so then it's not really a challenge. But if you do a web app, if you do a mobile app, if you do a website, you will have to build this yourself, and maybe you don't know it, but you are putting your finger in some gears that can take you quite a long time into a development phase, and something that you will not only have to develop, but you will have to maintain, and well, you're suddenly having much more to do. One of the challenges, what we see more and more, is customers asking us headless when they actually have a website to do, and for some reason they think they will do their website with the latest fancy JavaScript library, which is great, and actually we love JavaScript here, but they very often go this way because of the buzz, because of what's in the air now, but they don't really know that they might engage in something which will generate a lot of work, They might commit to technologies that are maybe subject to change rather quickly, especially on the front-end side. So there's every 6 months a new, or every 6 weeks a new JavaScript library which replaces the one which was in fashion. So my only thing with that is that by rebuilding the web delivery, by rebuilding the website yourself from APIs instead of using the template engine of a CMS and the way a traditional CMS works, you will definitely be able to do something which is pixel perfect and which is exactly what you need, but you're engaging into a rather big work stream, a big project where you will build a lot of code, where you will have to maintain this code, and you will have many reasons to fail, much more than if you would reuse components which are actually already ready to deliver this kind of thing. So I don't say you should not do it. There are some cases where you should do it from Easy or from another pure headless API, but you need to be aware about that. It's not like the front will not build magically and it will not work by itself magically just by stacking a couple of front-end engineers doing the website.
Which companies should go headless?
If you're, it's really more of a business decision than a technical decision, I would say. If your business is about producing content and you don't manage the delivery, for instance, I don't know, you're a news agency and your job is really to produce a lot of content, and this content will go to partners or customers of yours, but they will use it through APIs. So that makes a lot of sense because you don't care about the web delivery, you don't care about the website. Your job is to produce content and make this content available through feeds, and that's a good fit, I think. Another one is if your project is really just about Internet of Things or devices or any kind of systems that don't use the web as a delivery but something else, then it's a good pick as well because it will simplify your overall architecture, I think. Then I think that's about it. Then after you will be in some use cases where there's also compromise and trade-off, and if you go headless you will have a lot more to do, so I'm not sure I could necessarily recommend this, but maybe you have the constraints that you don't want, or you have another team who is in charge of the web delivery of the website and your team is just in charge of the repository, then it could make sense, of course. Yeah. So one more thing about this question about which company should go headless, I think is one thing is important. It's about maturity. When you go headless, it means you will do a lot of work yourself by integrating the API into a website, an app, or something else. When you go this way, basically you need to be mature, you need to be ready, you need to be ready to be a software organization almost, like to be ready to engage in making your own product from an API, which is a very different approach than using a CMS where maybe you will have a partner making templates for you and just using it. So it's a different world, it's more modern, but it's about maturity. And it's not all organizations who are capable of jumping in that seat of being a software company, basically.
Give an example of a successful headless project using Easy.
So an example of headless, successful headless project, for instance, is I'm thinking of Viking Line, which is one of our customers. Their job is basically to take people on vacation on a cruise in the Nordic Sea, I think, only, yeah, and which is, by the way, disconnected from the internet. And what they wanted was to improve their passenger experience during the cruise, and they basically built an app that you can use on the boat and that you can use to access to services, to access to content, and to also get in touch with other passengers and interact with them. So this is purely an app. It's native app. There's no website. but all the content is actually delivered through the Easy content repository. And Easy is just used as a repository and at the backend for the content creation, but also for synchronization of the content from each boat to the master infrastructure. So it's a lot of APIs, a lot of integration, and that's a great use case where there's no website.